Excuse me, sir. I'm so sorry to disturb you, but it appears to be morning. Very inconvenient, I agree. I believe it is the rotation of the Earth that is to blame, sir.
And welcome to space, folks. Thanks for tuning into the Daily Space Weather. And we're going to be talking about all kinds of things like missiles and various other things. Lots of stuff to cover, so no screwing around. And we are unable to access the SDO site, so we're going to be looking at other stuff. This is the kind of screen you're going to get if you try to go visit the SDO site. And so we're looking at SOHO instead. Actually, here's the GOES 16. This is the 195 angstrom view. And I'm going to shrink this down so we can see the timestamps here. And that's not very animated. It's only showing a couple hours of activity there. Here's a visible light, and I would note that there are 0 sunspots right now. There is that active region rising there. No apparent umbral cores associated with that, therefore no sunspots. And again, we're looking at the SOHO today real quick because the SDO is not working. There's some security certificate issues. And here's the 1024 by 1024 171 angstrom view from the SOHO. You can see the magnetic looping associated with that active region, as well as a coronal hole in front of it right on the equator. And former sunspot 2755 still active down there in the south. Here's the 304 angstroms view in the same resolution from SOHO. Let's move on and look at some more data here. Here's HelioViewer. And let's look at former sunspot 2755's fields, as well as 171 angstroms. Let's fade out. And there you see the fade out, as well as the fields. And we'll do that a second time for your viewing pleasure. And let's go analyze the active region here also. Not a sunspot yet, folks, just a plage. And there are the fields associated with that, looking weaker than they did as it rose 2 days ago. Here's the GOES X-ray imager. We don't always look at this, but since we're lacking SDO data today, let's check it out. And we do see some B-class X-rays coming out here. No real flaring happening, just a general uptick. And here's the data. You can see right around here, we were above 10 to the negative 7th. Also here and here. So there's a couple little spikes in the X-ray flux there. Not really flares, really just background levels reaching the B class. And nothing too exciting there, but a little bit higher X-ray flux than true solar minimum conditions. 10.7 centimeter radio flux back up to 72, which is basically solar minimum conditions, and we drew that orange line in there at 70 solar flux units. So we're just barely above, just right on that line pretty much right now. KP index back down to 1. And we see a fairly weak solar wind right now. And we're skipping cosmic rays today. We covered it yesterday. Watch yesterday's video, the Daily Space Weather. Or perhaps watch yesterday's cosmology segment. Here's a real-time solar wind, and we just saw some recent extreme shifts here in the phi angle. See the phi angle going from 272 down to 48, and then back up to 384, and then back to 79. And just recently, as we did show prep, it's flipped back up to 341 degrees. Solar wind density 5.16 protons. That's protons per cubic centimeter. And solar wind speed 374 kilometers a second as it ramped down once again over the past 24. There's the data from ACE looking corroborative, as it typically does. Next, we'll look at total electron content. And this is a forecast, folks. It's based on various models. You can read all about it if you click the links below the video. This is going to show you things like GPS errors, and we typically see the highest GPS errors around the equator. And we actually see very low electron flux levels. Relativistic electrons also low. Here's the GOES electron flux. Quite cratered there, as we've been seeing very low levels of solar activity. Not a lot of solar wind hitting the planet. Here's the ionosphere map. We're looking at 6 hours of data here. And we see continued anomalies in the South Pacific, where we have daytime style charge ups at nighttime. So right there at 7 o'clock UT, we saw an 8 megahertz section there, even a 9 megahertz section there, forming over the South Pacific here off the west coast of South America in this area where my pointer is. And we've been seeing that for going on 2 months now, folks. Next, we'll take a look at the GOES magnetometers, which are fairly smooth, and we are going to be exiting the South Pole-oriented portion of the heliospheric current sheet momentarily. And let's look at the Gong 2. Now you can see the Gong 2 data. We are currently in the red area. This is stereo A out here on the left and stereo B out here to the right. This Gong 2 data is derived from about 51 ground-based magnetometers, the Sunspot Observatory, for instance, as well as stereo A and stereo B's magnetometers. We see on the far side of the sun, we see a polarity shift happening there. That's probably caused by an active region or a sunspot south of the equator, pulling the North Pole field down to the associated portion there, and it's just the way it works, folks. Yeah, so that's the Gong 2 data, and this is 1 hour and 30 minutes old. I would expect to be in the North Pole oriented portion of the current sheet by the end of the day today. So when we do tomorrow's video, chances are we'll see this line snap across into the North Pole oriented portion of the current sheet, noted here in green, and that should cause some significant GOES magnetometer spikes. And also there is a coronal mass ejection headed this way. We're expecting that in the next 24 hours or so as well. Here's the geospace magnetosphere movie. Again, that coronal mass ejection could miss to the southeast. We covered this before it was even fully released from the corona. Not a lot of hydrodynamic pressure going on here in the geospace magnetosphere movies. And next we're going to look at the delta B ground perturbations, changes in the Earth's B field, the field that goes through the magnet, folks. And this is 4 hours of data on both of these geospace magnetosphere movies. Keep in mind, if you weren't aware yet, there's a polar excursion going on where we've got 2 North Poles. The net North Pole is off east of Greenland somewhere. But there's a North Pole in northern Canada as well as Siberia, and the South Pole is creeping into the southern Indian Ocean. What do you think about that? Please leave a comment. We did see another 6 magnitude quake over the past 24 hours, and a lot of quakes. So let's just scroll up the list here. We're not going to cover everything as there's too much to do. So there's a 5.6 magnitude aftershock at Puerto Rico, adding insult to injury. We saw a lot of damage has happened there. Hoping everybody is doing okay at Puerto Rico. Shout out Caribbean viewers. So tons of aftershocks kicking off at Puerto Rico there. No real surprise. You're going to see a lot of Puerto Rico on the list here as I scroll up and scroll and scroll. Shishaldin volcano actually kicked off also. We're going to talk about it in a minute. Just scrolling up the list here. Here's a deep quake in western South America. That's a 4.5 magnitude at 191 kilometers depth. And I'm just scrolling and scrolling. And here's a 5.2 at Nicaragua. That one at 202 kilometers depth there also. So heads up Nicaragua, Central America, as well as Western South America, you could experience a larger quake at the surface. And over the past 24, the largest quake is a 6.0 at Papua New Guinea. And let's just take a quick look at the location of that. And it looks like it occurred on land. And it looks pretty uninhabited there. And it looks like it's next to a volcano or two. In fact, it could be between two volcanoes. Not sure whether those are active or not. But there's the location of that 6 magnitude quake. The past 24 hours largest quake. And let's get back to the list here, as there are too many things on it to cover. Wow, look at all the quakes that have kicked off in the past 24, folks. The way I have this set up, it's only going to cover 4+ magnitudes worldwide and all magnitudes in the US. So tons of quakes hitting Puerto Rico as it is rocking in the Caribbean. No significant seismicity out in the Aleutian Islands despite a significant volcanic eruption. We'll get to it in a minute. So earthquake uptick here, folks. Here's one in Iran, actually, who is also in the news, having fired missiles at 2 U.S. air bases in Iraq. And coming in as we did show prep, we see a 4.5 at 420 kilometers depth in the Izu Islands near Japan, as well as a deep quake at Chile, that one coming in at a 5.2 magnitude and 109 kilometers depth. Were you aware that a new island was formed off the shore of Comoros, whatever it's called? A new island formed off the island of Mayotte in the Indian Ocean in 2018. And here's an article about it from phys.org. There are some interesting aspects to the magma chamber here, so perhaps read about that if you are all into volcanoes. Now let's look at Shishaldin. Here's the Shishaldin volcano, and it looks like they got the webcam turned on, but it's too dark there to return any images, so perhaps check that later. That's windy.com, by the way. And let's close this out and look at the pressure maps as we do most days. And here are the maps of the pressure systems. We're going to get into the forecast model here, the GFS model. We'll let that advance about 24 hours and continue on, as there is tons of stuff to cover. We don't want the video to be too long. And there's where things will be around 1400 Zulu tomorrow, according to the GFS model. Looks like it's going to get a little colder where I'm at, as there will be an anticyclone above my head. I'm located in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. And thanks, new viewers, everybody who's tuned in and has not before. Volcano rundown includes Mount Aso producing possible activity. Shishaldin is erupting in an epic fashion, producing a 33,000-foot ash plume close to the stratospheric boundary, especially because it's so far north. As volcanic aerosols, a net global cooling input, get injected into the atmosphere. Popocatépetl still exploding, 20,000-foot ash plume there, frequent volcanic emissions. Pacaya, one of the Mayans' favorite volcanoes, back to Strombolian activity. Lava flows on the southern flank remain active. Please don't pitch a tent on the southern slopes of Pacaya, or on any of the slopes of Pacaya. Sangay still exploding, 17,000-foot ash plume there. Revenador exploding, flight level 16,000. And Sabancaya, please do not attempt to do the Fosbury flop over Sabancaya, as it would have to be a 22,000-foot tall Fosbury flop. And that would be a record breaker. I think the high jump record is about 7 feet. So we got some lightning coming down, or is it going up, in Australia? Let us know the status of the fires, Kimberly. Anyway, check out lightningmaps.org if you hear thunder. Here's where the jet streams are located in the Western world. And extreme meridional jet stream flow. Once again, we see the jet stream flowing east to west over the central Atlantic Ocean there, making two 180-degree turns in a matter of about 1,200 miles. Let's look at the eastern jets and keep this thing moving, as there are tons more things to talk about. Extreme flow, also pulling some very, very cold air down into the Middle East. Here's a U.S. Doppler radar map. Nothing too exciting to write home about there. Here's the U.S. water vapor map. Yesterday we saw some interesting formations. Cold air filling up the valleys in southern Colorado. And today we see a convergence over central Texas, so let's just take a quick look at that, where we show people Hall currents nearly every day and try to increase people's understanding of atmospheric physics. It's not chemtrails, it's not contrails. It's Hall currents. Shout out to Andy Hall, give me a ring. By the way, if you haven't checked out smAsho yet, check it out, scroll down. Maybe click on the links to our social media. We've got the YouTube page, Twitter, Instagram, Minds, BitChute. They're all linked up there. We don't have Twitch on here yet. It'll be there eventually. But come down here and click on the newly unveiled smAsho forum. Set yourself a login. We only have 13 members so far. Interesting conversations about everything from cosmology to Earth and geophysics to general science to the sun to a free-for-all where you can post whatever you want. And thanks, Terrence, for posting some human health stories about the connection between type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's disease. Yes. Now let's talk about the possibility of a nova, as Betelgeuse has been in the news lately. How about V Sagittae? Some folks expecting this to explode by the end of the century, and this is based on computer modeling of its behavior. This is a catastrophic variable. Read all about it. We've left a link to this SpaceRef article in the description, and if you aren't a patron yet, please consider becoming one. You'll get updates before everybody else, and you will be responsible for helping to support the channel, as the patrons are the real associate producers of the show, and there is a credit crawl coming soon, folks, so look for that. Preferably set up a smAshomash.org, smashomash.com/forum account, so we can talk all about the credit crawls and what people want to be called, if you've got a nickname or whatever. Thanks everybody viewing on YouTube or wherever you're viewing the video. Please share on your social media, as we are in a massive growth stage here in the beginning of 2020. Thanks, Smash Team. That's everybody tuning in. Again, the SDO is down. Let's talk about whatever we want in the that is an ass and that is a hole in the ground, where we go vulgarity free and we talk about literally anything we want. Let's talk about cats. Felis domesticus is pollution. You want to keep your cat healthy? Now, I'm not anti-cats as long as they're in your house and not outside causing havoc, environmental destruction. As cats are expected to have been killing billions, that's 21 billion mammals per year and up to 4 billion birds a year. That's a problem. Cats are pollution. If you want yours to be healthy, keep the thing inside, as your neighbors who have bird feeders will be less likely to shoot it with a crossbow that way. Here are some 4 tips for keeping your cat happy and healthy. Now, these vicious beasts will torture other animals to death over a slow period, but if you've got one, just keep it in the house, because I've got bird feeders, and let's just say I don't treat cats well when they show up at the bird feeder. Speaking of not treating folks well, a Boeing 737 bound for Kyiv crashes in Iran, killing all on board. Now, it wasn't a Boeing 737 MAX. It was a 737-800. The cause is not known, but it crashed right after takeoff. We've left links to the article on CNBC also below the video. Now, regarding U.S. air bases in Iraq getting struck by Iranian missiles, Trump tweets all is well. So, missiles launched from Iran at 2 military bases located in Iraq. Assessment of casualty and damage is taking place now. So far, so good, I guess meaning no U.S. casualties. What's going on is Iran has launched more than a dozen ballistic missiles against multiple bases housing U.S. troops in Iraq and have threatened more crushing responses if Washington carries out further strikes. And let's just say that if we get images of dead and injured U.S. soldiers, then the worst-case scenarios begin to open up. If no real damage has been done by these missiles, but Tehran gets to show the crowds it responded, then more positive possibilities are still available. We will find out shortly, but breaking news is that there are only Iraqi casualties, according to its Ministry of Defense. It remains to be seen if that is a red line for Trump, or it is the kind of collateral damage he was expecting after taking out the former Iranian IRGC, I don't know what that means, head Soleimani. So you'll see this all over the news today. Perhaps you watched it here first. Let's talk about the stock market, as markets were affected by not only the strike on Soleimani, but also the Iranian airstrikes, and it's caused some things to happen. Now here's the run-up of the S&P over the past year. And talk about a run-up. Let's look at some more interesting markets here. First of all, let's look at the one-year chart of Bitcoin on Coinbase, as Bitcoin received a small uptick as a direct result of fighting with Iran. So an uptick there in Bitcoin as reported by the Coinbase exchange. Let's look at Ethereum also, which once again did not experience the same uptick as Bitcoin did. There is the data. The one-year chart on Ethereum still looking like a better buy than Bitcoin as far as I'm concerned. This is the silver certificate. The second largest crypto is Ethereum, and if you missed out on the Bitcoin run-up, well, maybe that'll be better for you. Let's look at oil, as we would expect oil prices to have surged also as a result of the Iranian missile strikes. Not a real big deal there with that, although oil is up on a this year basis so far in 2020. So nowhere near its highs, as it was about $150 an ounce at the last financial crisis. Let's also look at gold, as gold saw a big spike. It's near a 7-year high now. There's the giant spike in gold. And that's a one-year chart, by the way. And here's the silver chart. Please leave a comment if you were watching our videos when we were telling you to buy silver at $14 or less per ounce. That was around Christmas of 2018. And it was down as low as $14.55 an ounce in May of 2019. Anyway, there's the current state of affairs. And I would just note the all data chart on silver, as it is my favorite precious metal. It was all the way up to $50 an ounce nearly back in the 2011 Great Recession, it's called by many. And let's move on to the cosmology segment, where we talk about, well, you get the idea. Here's where stuff's located in the solar system. And here's where stuff shall be, God willing, in a week. Here's where stuff is above my head. Check out in-the-sky.org. Make yourself a sky chart. Just come up here to charts, click all sky charts, put in your location or a location near enough by. And it looks like the moon's about to set. Let's hit refresh. It's currently 4:26 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Do you know where your constellations are? And let's talk about, I don't know what we're talking about, the largest gaseous structure ever observed in the Milky Way, as there is a giant line of gas. And It's the Radcliffe wave. I don't know what I was going to say about this, but let me just scroll down. And I guess you can read the article here from Cosmos magazine just by viewing our video. So I'll just let that scroll down real nice and slowly, and you can just pause it and read the article if you like. The research team noticed a long, thin structure that is about 9,000 light years long and 400 light years wide, with a wave-like shape cresting 500 light years above and below the mid-plane of the galaxy's disk, as all that plasma is aligning to the magnetic fields. Part of the Gould's Belt, which is a famous band of star-forming regions. And it is another advancement in understanding the 3D structure of the Milky Way. And it's a 13 million year wave, folks. It's not a 12,500 year wave. Cosmic rays are starting to tear the Large Magellanic Cloud apart, according to some models. And we left links to this space.com article also about the Large Magellanic Cloud and the way cosmic rays influence it, as protons are flying through the galaxy at a significant percentage of the speed of light, colliding with things, causing all kinds of particle showers, ionizing gas and dust, heating it up, and trying to expel it. Were you aware that some supermassive black holes, which we refer to on this channel as massive radio sources, are not in the hearts of galaxies? Now, it's believed that galactic mergers cause black holes to be flung out, and we're not going to conjecture about it, but we left links to this article also. Wandering black holes, which I call black holes. Since we live in a universe of light, to quote Dr. Robitaille, we live in a universe of light, not dark energy and black holes, so we call them massive radio sources, as we've done since the mid-90s. Here's a computer simulation showing a supermassive black hole at the heart of a galaxy, for some reason. As all of those things use gravitational accretion models, and we've seen some new cosmic tools come into the toolbox in the past year, such as polarization causing things to stick together, a real experiment as to how things like planets and indeed galaxies form. They form on polarization and indeed ionization pathways, folks, the same way you form. Anyway, there are apparently 13 supermassive black holes that are just not where you'd expect them to be, as again, they're not always located in the center of galaxies. And let's not conjecture about it at all and just continue on here. As there's so many articles today, it's tough to cover them all. Now, we found a very, very distant galaxy group known as EGS 77, which is believed to have formed when the universe was just 680 million years old. Now, we don't understand the age of the universe, but standard cosmologists will claim that they do. And let's just say the distance to distant objects is beyond disputed, as using redshifts Doppler effects, light's Doppler effects, aka redshift, may not be the most accurate way. Now, really far objects we can't use parallax to calculate their distance to. But, hey, it's interesting to look at the most distant galaxies, especially when we realize that they do not fit into Big Bang cosmology. Why don't they fit into Big Bang cosmology? Because these things are way too evolved to have existed so long ago. So the farther out we look into space, folks, the more the Big Bang gets disproven. Let's talk about Sophia coming out with the best infrared images ever of the Milky Way galaxy. We covered this on yesterday's cosmology segment, and it's so good that we put the Universe Today article back in again. If you missed yesterday's cosmology segment, check it out. It's our most recent video, on YouTube at least. In fact, on most platforms. Anyway, infrared light is able to make it through a lot of gas and dust, and we're able to see structures we would not otherwise be able to see. Here's a high-res image of it, and here's the area around the core. And there's a zoom out, as there are some large infrared structures visible there. Are you familiar with Cygnus A? Well, here's what Cygnus A looks like in radio. In visible light. And that's Cygnus A in visible light. Here's what it looks like in X-ray, visible, and radio. One of the most interesting jets, we're looking at this right from the edge, as we see the jets coming out in a perpendicular fashion, practically both oriented in the same manner. These giant radio jets being produced by the core of the galaxy will be featured on a shirt that we're going to come out with later this month, the 3C405 shirt, featuring massive radio galaxy Cygnus A, as well as our smashomash.org URL. By the way, if you weren't aware, Cygnus A is the second strongest radio source in the entire sky, second only to the local yellow dwarf, otherwise known as the sun. Again, please check out smashomash.org and sign up for the forum. You'll be able to post topics and talk about literally whatever you want within the confines of the law. And please don't forget to press like and subscribe on YouTube or on BitChute or wherever you're viewing the videos. Please share on your social media, as again, we are in a massive growth stage. Thanks everybody viewing live on Twitch. And if you're viewing this anyplace besides twitch.tv/smashamash, you're seeing this less than live. So, in any case, thanks again, patrons. Please consider becoming a Patreon if you haven't yet done so, as that is the true source of funding for the page, the videos, etc. So join at the gold level. It's only $9.99 a month. Thanks again, Smash Team. And I would give you some bonus features, but it's not happening. Thanks for being Entropy Busters. The SDO is still not loading, so we are out. Thanks again for tuning in, folks. Remember to stare at the sun, and when you do so, don't drink it. If you drink, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back and that atherosclerosis absent from your veins.